Welcome back to the afternoon session of our Keep the Conversations Going festival. We're delighted to bring artists, makers, directors, producers, art workers and more together over these 3 days. And the conversations have been mighty. We've also learned a good deal from our informative morning talks. Before we hand it over to Christina Florescu, I wanted to remind you again that while we've curated this festival and are offering it for free, we're in need of support, help and promotion from you, our viewers. We've been trawling through the funding schemes and unfortunately we don't fit most of them, which means we have to find alternative ways to continue our work, platforming, promoting and documenting the news and conversations happening in Irish theatre and the wider world. If you find value in what we're doing, please support us by pledging any amount at TheatreMaker.ie/donate. If a financial pledge isn't a possibility, then please share our posts, our videos and our fundraising campaign with your friends and colleagues. We know there are folks out there who haven't heard us, and that's a shame. Help us spread the word. Your support will allow us to keep the conversations going. We're now joined in our studio at Axis by Christina Florescu, who will be talking to us about her freelance marketing business and her recommendations for marketing for artists. We will be listening with sharp ears. Now, let's hand it over to Christina.
Hi everyone, and thank you to TheatreMaker for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. I am Christina. I am a marketing consultant or marketing executive with about 5 years of experience in the arts, starting with some local festivals in England and then a bigger festival in Ireland you may have heard of called the Dublin Fringe Festival. I also worked at the Lear Academy for a few years, and I've recently started my own freelance business called Honeycomb Marketing, offering marketing services to small businesses as well as artists. So I'm here today to talk to you a bit about arts marketing and what a marketing strategy is. Having a career that was so closely linked to theatre, I truly believe that the difference between having and not having a marketing strategy can be the difference between having a handful of people at your show and having a sold-out performance. And I'm not just exaggerating, I've seen it happen. I think that in an ideal world, every creative would be able to hire a marketing professional to kind of take the pressure of the marketing strategy off their shoulders and let you focus on what you do best, which is creating. But I know we don't live in an ideal world and we are recovering from a terrible pandemic. So I'm here to give you a few tips about how to think about your show promotion in terms of marketing. And that can hopefully help you promote your upcoming show if you don't have the resources to hire someone else. I'm just going to start by saying what is arts marketing to me. So when I work as a freelancer, I think of marketing in terms of 3 elements. So that's print, PR, and digital marketing. Print is anything that has to do with posters, programs, leaflets. PR is anything that has to do with the press. And then digital marketing is mainly social media, but can be also any other type of online communication like newsletters and industry invites, website listings, anything that you do online. But I do think that social media provides so many tools and has so much potential to help you promote your show, even if you're doing it on your own. So I will dive into a couple of do's and don'ts for setting up a social media strategy for your show, and a couple of tips that can help you keep on top of this additional work if you're doing it yourself. The first thing I want to say, and if you take one thing out of this talk, it should be this, is that you shouldn't treat marketing as an afterthought. This is something that I've seen most often, where creatives would put on their show, work on their production, and then think about how to promote the show and how to sell tickets. And I can totally see how that makes sense. But I do think, from my experience, that a good marketing strategy is a strategy that follows the outline of your production. So make marketing part of your creative process. Treat it as an extension of your creative process, of what you're doing to put a show on stage. Think of it in the same creative terms that you think about the production. And also bring your team on board. You have a lot of creative minds on your team, whether you are the producer, the director, the stage designer, or the actor. You will have other people on your team who have different perspectives and who also might have different material skills like video editing and photography that can help you produce some really cool material. So I would say bring them on board, distribute the responsibility, and things will be easier for all of you. I'd also say be realistic about your resources. There's a reason why we have people like myself who look after arts marketing, and that's because it can be very resource draining. So you may not be able to do everything that a marketing professional can do, but if you're realistic about what you can do, you can make the most of it. So for example, instead of thinking you're going to be editing really professional teaser trailers every couple of weeks, just set yourself more achievable goals. Like, for example, you could say that you're going to post a few Instagram stories with sneak peeks from behind the stage every week or so. And that is more achievable and kind of achieves the same result as well. So be realistic about your resources and your team's resources. And don't set yourself goals that are too high or too unachievable. I think before you start thinking about posts and actual content, you need to do a bit of research, and I would say that the research part is one of the reasons why my profession exists. We can dive really deep into numbers and statistics about analytics and all that, and it can be very overwhelming. But there are a few things that you can do on your own that might add a couple of extra hours of work at the start. But on the long term, it'll help you keep on top of the content you produce. So I think the first thing you need to research is your audience. I would give you a tip to create a perfect audience persona in your head. You could even name this persona. Give it a name. Think about who your audience is. What is their age? What is their gender, if that's relevant? What's their demographics? Where do they live? How do they find information about their arts and culture events? What are their interests? And then with that persona in mind, you can start creating content for social media. And that means that your content will be way more targeted and way more efficient. And you know that persona can be something that's very close to you, can be someone who's a similar age or has similar interests. So then you can think about what kind of content you engage with on social media. I think a way of making digital marketing or social media marketing less daunting is thinking that we use social media quite a lot on our daily basis. We use it for our personal lives. We use things like Insta stories and tweets and retweets. So the only difference when you're doing this for your show is that you need to curate it a bit more and be a bit more strategic. I'd say also know your platforms. So once you've created this persona, think about what platforms they might be more likely to use. I personally like to go for kind of the three main platforms, which is Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. But you could be more creative and go for TikTok or Snapchat or other platforms. But from my experience as a marketing professional, I think Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook have some really good features for arts marketing promotions. So here's another insight tip. Instagram will be very good for very visual art forms, or has very accessible tools like Insta stories. Twitter is great for using other people's audience to spread your message. So if you're part of a festival, you can ask that festival to retweet your content. If you're putting on a show in a venue, you can ask the venue. You can use the network of your peers and other institutions to promote your message. Whereas Facebook is very good for paid ads. So a Fiverr can take you a very long way on Facebook. You can create Facebook events that you could put money behind and reach a wider audience. So think about what tools appeal to you out of these, where your audience is, and where you can create content the easiest. Because ideally, if you'd had a person hired on your team as a marketing person, they would obviously have the time to use all these 3 platforms. But if you're also involved in the creative process, you may not have the time. So that means that's fine. That just means you need to really do some research into what are the best opportunities each platform offers and where it is that you can create content the easiest. I would also say don't leave any complicated content for last. If you're able to create that very cool poster that needs loads of editing at the start, do that then. If you're able to create a teaser trailer when you're not very busy and you're not worrying about ticket sales, do that then. And in terms of how to create content, I think the easiest way to think about it, and it will come naturally if you take my first advice and think about marketing as an extension of your creative process, is to document each stage of your production. Take your camera with you, take your phone with you, you don't even need a camera. Take photos, take short videos, take Insta stories of every stage of the production from reading to your first performance on stage. It doesn't have to be super professional. It can be if you want. You can certainly focus on a few bits of material that are incredibly professional and well edited, but it can also just be things you take on, videos and photos you take on your phone, and that is perfectly fine. And the content doesn't have to be perfect and curated. The creative process can be quite messy, so don't be afraid to show that to the audience. Of course, you can use your judgment and think about how much you want to show your audience before the show. But in my experience, this kind of behind-the-scenes content, meet the team content, Insta takeovers, any content that allows people to know the person behind the play is very popular, and it'll help people be curious and be interested in your show, so that when the time comes that tickets are on sale or your first performance is looming, you will already have people's interest. On that note, social media platforms are full of accessible tools. So like I said, you don't have to go have a whole production team to create a teaser trailer. You can use very accessible tools like Insta stories, tweets and retweets, hashtags, Instagram takeovers, reels, short pieces of content that can be very manageable for you and your team, and are very engaging. And another very important tip is to ask the people you know to spread the word. I think the power of the spoken word or the word of mouth is still quite high up there. So in my experience, it's really good to tell all your aunt and aunties and your uncles about your show, ask them to tell their friends, but also in more strategic terms, ask your friends and fellow creative peers to share your content on social media, especially if you're creating a platform from scratch. It's great to have someone engage with your content so that it then reaches more people. And then kind of my final tip is to be consistent. So you've started thinking about marketing as an extension of your creative process. You've brought your team on board. You have a game plan, and you know what kind of posts you want to put out there and what kind of content you want to put out there. You've done your little research. You know what your ideal audience member is and where they go to get their arts and culture news. You know what kind of tools you want to use on different platforms. Be consistent and stick to it. Don't post 3 times a week in the first week of production and then post again when it's time to sell tickets for your first performance. Like I said, take your potential audience on a tour of your creative process and post consistently, even if it's shorter pieces of content, because all social media platforms favor engagement and favor consistency, and for people to engage with your content, you need to put it out there. And then my final piece of advice is, of course, be creative. This is what you do best. And while there is a little bit of strategy behind a digital marketing campaign, there's also a lot of creativity. So you can really have fun with it. Coming back again to my first point, make it part of your creative process, and really enjoy creating this content. Transfer the kind of tone and personality of your production or your art piece onto your social media and create some really engaging content and original content for people to see. So I know I've probably talked a lot, and it's probably a lot of information to take in. I would say if there are going to be 3 things you take out of this, or 3 tips, is think of marketing as an extension of your work on the production. Bring your team on board and know what your resources are. And then you'll be able to keep on top of your work and have fun with it. And when better days come, maybe you'll be able to distribute this work to someone else. But until then, until we get back on your feet, hopefully you can use these tips to put together a small digital marketing strategy and spread the word about your show. I know there's going to be a Q&A, I believe. So if you have any questions about what I just talked about, feel free to drop them in the comments and I will answer them. But you can also find me on social media. And I offer free consultations that are free of charge and free of any obligation. So you can contact me there. You can probably see my my plugs there. You can contact me via email or on social media, and I can chat to you further. But please do feel free to put in your questions if you want me to clarify anything of what I talked about or discuss anything further.
Thank you for that, Christina. That was very informative. And I do believe we do have a question coming in from social media. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say the name of our special guest who asked a question. Where can people get more information? Do you have a website people could follow, or is it very much trade secrets?
No, people can find me on Instagram at honey.marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Honey as in how Winnie the Pooh spells it.
Oh, cute.
Because I'm very mature. I am a professional, I swear. And then on LinkedIn at Honeycomb Marketing or via email.
Excellent. Fabulous. Thank you for coming all the way across town to meet with us.
Yeah.
It's great to have industry professionals in with us with the trade secrets. And you're freelancing at the moment, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. And how have you been finding it in the current climate?
Well, I have been working more with businesses and artists, and that's been fully to be expected, given how horrible the pandemic was to the arts.
Oh, of course.
So that's why I was very happy to share some tips, because I know people might just not have the resources right now to hire someone like me.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise I'm looking forward to maybe next year when things are going to be more stable.
Okay.
I really enjoy working on shows. I've worked on some freelance shows while I was still working full time. So I'm really looking forward to get back on that.
Oh, okay. So we have our first question, which is how would you suggest artists or shows document their marketing strategy? Did you include goals, objectives such as ticket sales?
Yeah, I mean, you can go very sciencey about it and set what we call KPIs. So you can
key performance indicators.
Yeah, you can kind of set yourself some goals and think this is how many ticket sales we expect to generate from this marketing strategy. I would say again, as in with the material you're going to produce, keep those goals achievable. So don't set yourself a goal that you will sell out on each performance. Maybe set a goal that you'll sell at 70% or 60%, and then anything beyond that, not saying that you won't be able to sell out, but anything beyond that will be a nice surprise, as opposed to a disappointment that will deflate your whole team. And in terms, I'm not sure if that was meant to be documenting for kind of posterity, but yeah, you could obviously save all the material you've done, like the online world. It makes it very easy to save information. Yeah, you could be able to do it that way, and then you could even look at what you've done and what worked and what didn't for your next performance. It's very easy to look at posts on analytics. Each platform provides an analytics feature where you can look at how each post performed. You can do that even as you're creating content, but if you're part of the creative team and you're doing it yourself, I wouldn't recommend it, just because you can get really caught up in it. It can take a long time.
Of course.
And if you've already kind of had an idea of what you want to do throughout your whole marketing strategy, it can kind of throw things off and make you nervous. And I generally find that with kind of a short-term promotion, like shows tend to be, it's not worth looking at analytics as you go along. You'll get much more richer data and information if you look after everything is kind of done and dusted.
You must see that a lot, because I'm sure, obviously, especially with shorter shows, where, like a lot of things, it's kind of pushed to one side, where it's like, oh, someone will take over that, someone will take on that role, someone will deal with that prop, someone will put out that. It's just a couple of social media posts.
Yeah, I think that's why I was saying at the start to bring your team on board and kind of make them really part of it and distribute the responsibility so everyone knows what they're doing, and you avoid situations like that, for sure.
Great. We got another question, actually, for you, which is what are some of the most common mistakes you see artists make when marketing their work?
I think number one would be what I said at the start, that they consider marketing an afterthought. And I can see how it makes sense that, you know, you're going to think about selling tickets after everything is done, but I would really encourage artists to think about marketing from the start. And then another thing would be just kind of jumping in on whatever trends are most easily accessible, like just putting loads of hashtags in a post or tagging random people in a post without actually knowing what fits them. So that's why I was saying do a bit of research into what each social media platform can offer and how you can use all these tools so that you can use them cleverly and you can really target your posts and have them have like a really solid message. So don't jump on, obviously if you consume some kind of social media form that you find really engaging and you think, oh, this could really work for my own show, do that, but don't just jump on doing certain things with your content because you've seen it here and there on social media or you think it's popular. Just see what fits the tone of your show.
Yeah, I feel trends, like you often see it as well, that go through fads. You know, we would obviously already be outdated to be trying to fit our Shakespearean play into a sea shanty on TikTok or something, probably.
Yeah, and that can definitely turn into something really creative and cool, but that could also terribly backfire. So I'd say go for kind of more tried and tested. You can find all sorts of listicles and tips online. But yeah, just think of what actually fits with the tone of your show. Like if your Shakespeare show actually takes place at sea, sure, go for a sea shanty. But if it doesn't, maybe it's not the place to do it. And I think the main thing you need to remember about social media is that it favors engagement. So try to engage people and get people to like and share your content, and then you'll be able to spread the message.
Here's another question. How important is it to have a consistent look and feel across your social media? This is actually a question that I often think about myself sometimes because I'm conscious I'm not the most social media savvy person. However, I know a lot of people opt for having things disseminated from, like, we'll say Facebook to both maybe Instagram and something else. And I always feel like maybe you should be tailoring your content, because I think of posts for Facebook as a different kind of post from Instagram. But do you think it's more important for them to look and feel consistent, or do you think it's good to maybe make them more unique for each platform?
I definitely wouldn't be a fan of parroting the exact same message on all platforms. So say you have 3 different platforms, I would definitely not recommend posting the exact same message at the same time on the same day on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. It can kind of have the same idea, but at least even if you rephrase them a bit, it's something new. And I would definitely recommend posting it at different times or different days during the week. And my kind of explanation behind that is that if people follow you on all 3 platforms, instead of seeing the same repetitive message 3 times in a day, they will see the message once on Facebook. They might forget about it, say, oh yeah, I really need to buy tickets to that, but forget about it. See it 2 days later on Instagram, and then see it 3 days later on Twitter, and that's really gonna like kind of remind them about your show and keep it at the back of their minds at all times. So yeah, I agree with you. I definitely wouldn't post the exact same post on all platforms. But I think you can also create a consistent image without doing that. Like, it just has to do more with the tone and kind of imagery you go for. So, and then it also depends if you opt for having a platform created for your play, or if you're going to use your own personal accounts. I think a lot of people have their own personal accounts with a huge following, and in that case, I'd recommend that you post from them and don't bother about setting up something from scratch. And that can mean that, you know, you can follow whatever your personal tone is, because people obviously engage with your content because they enjoy your personality, and then the content you put out can kind of follow those same lines. But if you're going to focus specifically on your production, I would definitely recommend having a consistent tone. So being playful and using loads of emojis from the start, or being kind of more solemn from the start. But yeah, just be consistent about it. But that doesn't need to mean that you create repetitive content and post it at the same times on all platforms.
Well, your talk is proving very popular, because we have yet another question coming in. What are your top 2 tips for if you're really new to social media promotion? And I might turn this around and ask, you know, how could TheatreMaker improve its social media promotion?
I say my top 2 tips are do that bit of research I mentioned, get familiar with all the platforms and what are the most accessible tools for you, and then be consistent. Plan out what you want to post and what kind of content you can produce, and post as often as possible. That doesn't mean that, you know, your content quality needs to decrease, so don't post nonsense for the sake of posting 5 times a week. But be consistent and give people a chance to engage with your content, because if you're new to social media, that probably means your accounts are new. So you need to get the message out there. As for the TheatreMaker social media, it doesn't need to change anything. It's absolutely perfect.
Oh, stop it, you.
Everyone is great.
I'm not sure if we have any more questions. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, like I said, if you need to sit with what I've said, you can get in touch with me, and I'm happy to have a chat with you. I'm delighted to see so many questions. I hope this means that people have a lot of projects coming up and the arts are starting to get back to life finally. So yeah, that's all from me. Thank you very much. It's been lovely.
We do have one more question coming in. Like I said, terribly popular you are today. Are some forms of media, such as video, more successful for engagement? I've heard plenty of rumours about video in particular, but you can probably enlighten us a little more.
Yeah, video is kind of taking over. It's that people, I think what you need to keep in mind is that people's attention span is becoming shorter and shorter. So reading texts is definitely not something people enjoy doing. So yeah, obviously you're going to need to put text with your posts, but try to keep it short and snappy. Photos still work great. You can create some really good, engaging, attention-grabbing photos, but you kind of need to go the extra mile a bit to grab people's attention. But video is definitely more engaging, and it doesn't need to be a daunting thing to learn. You don't need to have the best edited video in the world. It's literally videos you can take on your phone and put on Instagram, boomerang videos on Insta stories or 30-second reels. It's very short content, but it's definitely gaining more popularity in video form.
Also, do you have any specific tips for independent artists who are obviously having to balance their work as well as promoting themselves, because they probably don't have anyone to do it for them?
Yeah, I'd say work in a team. I mean, if you're an independent artist and you want to promote a certain production, chances are you'll have at least 2 more people in your team. So don't feel like you can't share that responsibility. And then obviously you can do it in a way that reflects on you individually as well. I think having a show that is doing really well and is selling really well speaks for itself, so that will kind of reflect back on you. And if you're running your own social media accounts, just think about what you want people to know about you, and portray that in the most engaging, creative way you can think of.
I feel like we need another whole separate thing on. I'm considering my own social media at the moment, and I often have a hard time with trying to think about what kind of audience I'm trying to engage for, like, a range of things, like, oh, do I want to sell myself as a designer? Do I want to sell myself as a technician? Do I want to sell myself as a TV host?
Yeah, I mean, it can be all of them. What I would recommend is that people have a professional and a personal Instagram account or a social media account, maybe, because you might not want future employers to know that you were very hungover on a Sunday. But yeah, social media is really not a rigid platform. Obviously, if you're a big organization like the Abbey, your social media can probably needs to be more formal. But if you're an independent artist, you definitely can have fun with it and make sure it reflects your personality, that it reflects your work, and it can be done in fun and creative ways. It doesn't have to be like a LinkedIn profile. So yeah, definitely just have fun with it, and think about what you want future employers to see.
Of course. Imagine you're hiring you, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
And I think that's it. I think we're done. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for coming into the studio with us. It's lovely to have guests.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to be here.
I've just been asked to give an announcement. I don't know what the announcement is yet. It's a surprise.
Okay.
Welcome back, folks. We're delighted to have Roxana Nick-Liam in the TheatreMaker.ie studio. I am so looking forward to this conversation. Before we get started, please take a moment to share this video, tag your friends, and give us a shout out on social media to let everyone know you're watching. We need your help to get the word out and keep the conversations going. You can pledge your financial support at TheatreMaker.ie/donate. It is such a pleasure now, I'm so excited, to welcome Roxana to the studio. Roxana is an artist and multi-hyphenate maker, and we might even be chatting os Gaeilge as we get into things. Roxana, fáilte, welcome to the studio. It's so lovely to have you.
Thanks so much for having me. This is very exciting.
So I have to be honest here and say, I first really came across you when you did your Access Breathe piece, Shukra.
Oh yeah.
And I completely fell in love with it. I thought it was so clever, so witty, and really hit a nerve for me as a theatre maker and writer, but also as a Gaeilgeoir. I grew up going to Gael Scoileanna and Gael Cloist. I did all my education at Gaeilge. And in recent times, we'll get into this a little bit later, I've kind of been going through this process of returning to that part of myself and that language.
Yeah.
So when Shukra came out, it was like you were speaking to my soul
Yeah.
a little bit. So we're going to have a chat about that, but I think before we get to that, let's have a little reminder for the people at home what Shukra was all about.
Great.
Shukra. Shukra. Little packets of sugar in cafes and restaurants ar fud na tíre. That's all over the country as Gaeilge, in Irish. Little packets of sugar, and on the back a little shanachal while you tuck into your cup on tea and your sambo. Shanachal. Old word, literally. A saying. An old piece of advice. Shan Leiston on them. Thousands of years of wisdom and wit distilled into cúpla focal and a bit of shukra. An endangered language. Our native tongue preserved on a preservative. Agus go minic ní bhíonn istigh na cake ho tábhacht agus atá sé as they absent-mindedly rip a sugar packet and throw it stracht a cup on tea. Gan is stove cad is brílin na focal sin. Na focal a dúirt ar sintric. Na shanachal. The gift of the gab. That's what we're told we have. And a shanachal is slí allen con rud éigen simply ará. Nuair bhíonn an cat an wit bíonn an luck ag rinke. The Irish way to say that when the cat's away, the mice will play. Ar watha leis féin a bhíonn an cat a cronan. Cunnic mé cheannathú ar an cat leis an maine te. Ólann an cat ciún baine leis. Browner. Winna landó leis an gat. Och, is na cín simply na cín is farragoni. Cun ceappa casta agus falsiúnacha locked inside the words. A néirtar cara i grútan. An rud is anamh is iontach. Is ma an tanan an tugras. Is minic a rish bail dinna a hrán. So cod film. In a post-boom, post-Culu, modern city live in Dublin, where do I fit into this Celtic community? Cá mo hail a pub na Gael. How do I find my identity with a language that's its own entity? A language that is so intrinsically linked with this land. Ceangas leis an talún, lán le rún. And me here trying to find my place in it. So where do I start? Conna sí anything mé shot a gheart. How do I help preserve and pass on in Gaeilge? So I can tell my ancestors I haven't failed you. No pressure, Roxana. Just the weight of your native ancient tongue ar the ruili. Ceann na teangacha is sinna ar down. Teanga na Gael in Uachtan Gael munas a bhla mí dí. Conna sa bheag mise an noun save the day. In anam day, pay dinner a hogan and ragger sin. Níl mise an noun a dhéanamh.
Absolutely beautiful, Roxana. How is that watching that back now so long afterwards since you've done it?
Yeah, it's really funny because I was just like going, oh yeah, I remember like I was having trouble remembering that, you know, because I was like, it was such a long piece that I was like I had to just learn it in little chunks as we went.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I think I know it all now. Like, although don't ask me to recite any of it, please.
I won't, don't worry, I wouldn't be that cruel. So let's dig into that a little bit then, Roxana. What has your journey with Gaeilge been? Where did that come from?
Well, it was a kind of a similar thing in what you were saying, in that all of my education was through Irish, and so it kind of like was something I never really thought about. I didn't kind of think of it in the bigger picture or it like as part of the national question or anything like that. And then as I left school, like my family don't like, my parents wouldn't speak Irish, and no one where I was from, I'm from East Wall, no one really spoke Irish there, so I kind of just lost. I just got out of habit of speaking it, I guess. And then just something within me in the last couple of years, I got more interested in the language as part of like my heritage, not just as a subject, because I think that when you're at school as well, it's like I did German, French, Irish, maths. You know, I thought about it like in those kind of terms. So I never even thought to speak it outside of school with my friends from school. But then when I started, to think about it as part of my heritage, as like the kind of connection that it has with identity and with land and, you know, like the national question and all these kind of things. And it just made me sad that I had kind of lost it, or I felt I had lost it. And then I have 3 sisters, but 2 of them were going to an Irish school as well. So we just kind of started speaking a little bit amongst each other. And it was just something where I still can't really articulate. I mean, like the video was 15 minutes and still doesn't manage to articulate it. But just, I don't know, I can't really express why it's important, but it is important. It's like, it's just, you know, people go, oh, it's a dead language, or it's this, or why bother speaking it? And it's not something that, it's not something that's kind of easy to articulate why. But it just fills me with such joy. I think because, like, as I say, in the rest of that piece, there's so much unlocked in those words, like the connection they have with, like, you know, physical land, and with magic, like our storytelling and our mythologies and stuff. There's so much that we just take for granted that doesn't exist in English, because English is just a higgledy-piggledy mishmash of, you know, leftover bits of language. And if you just take any word in the Irish language and you just start peeling it back, and there's just this kind of wealth of story there. And so that's kind of what I'm starting to learn. So I just started to think, like, I need to, like, I still wouldn't call myself fluent, but, you know, I speak Irish with a lot of people now at the minute. But I feel like I am a Gaeilgeoir, even though I'm not fluent. Or I'm on my way, you know, but I feel like I had to just you kind of just have to take that space. Like, you can't wait for that space to be created for you, because it wasn't going to be. And inner city Dublin, there's not a lot of, you know, it's not there, but someone has to be, like, you know, you have to kind of just declare it, like, and just go, like, oh, this is part of who I am now. And, or always was part of who I am. And people now will come up, since that video came out, like, people come up to speak Irish to me, like friends I've had for years that I didn't know spoke Irish. And also people just think everyone thinks, oh, I'm not that great at Irish. And then, you know, sometimes I'll have a few drinks and they'll be chatting to you all night. I think people are so, with Irish more than any other language, like, that they learn, there's so much anxiety, because it is linked to school and like right and wrong, that people are so scared about grammar and Mochanílachs and Tishel and all these things. And it's like, just, you know, do your best, send a eagle, you know. You have to start somewhere. And I mean, if someone makes the effort to speak Irish to me, it just fills me with such joy. I love it, like, that kind of way. So it's a start on my journey. So and then bringing that into my art as well is really new, and my own writing and stuff like that. That's, you know, and again, it's like, it's just the beginning of that journey, I think.
Yeah, on similar fad, Ceapan Cinnte go alán agla ag buint leis an teanga a labhairt.
Yeah.
Agus, bíonn alán strus ceapam faoi focail a rá I gheart or sa slí ceart. Agus, you know, it's hard sometimes, I think, for some people, as you were saying, you know, it's school. Yeah. It's the, you know, the ard tesh, as you were saying, the tish will get it. And there's such an anxiety around it. And there are also those who, you know, like yourself, I've been on this journey, as I mentioned earlier, with reconnecting to my Gaeilge, and sometimes I've seen, say, on Twitter, that some people can be quite mean when people are, you know, a Dana Víricht na cúpla focail outside. And I'm just like, oh no, don't do that. You know, and it's really interesting.
Where, like, because that's something that people say. I've heard that. And I'm sure people have had bad experiences, but I have never... And any Gaeilgeoirs I know are only delighted to put, you know, that kind of, and I feel like there is just this, like, that there's gatekeeping, or there's this, and I feel like there is a bit of an urban legend around that, like, and I think it doesn't help, you know, the kind of, oh, well, Cadigum Dulgan and Leher, like the same, like, crap jokes over and over, and it's
that ad that was on telly. Do you remember Cunis Boher, Colleen Balia?
Yeah, and people just think it's so funny, and it's just like, yeah, we've all heard it a million times. Like, it's the Irish mammy humour of the Irish language, like, and you're just kind of like, so maybe it comes from that, like, and or people, like, when they're drunk, like, might come up to you, but then they'll like be really demanding of your time, like, because it's and for people it's an everyday communicative language, like, it's their primary language, and no one owes you, like to be a teacher, like, in that kind of way. I think that's the thing, is that people expect Irish speakers to also be like great teachers, like, it's like, no, we're just
not how it works.
You know what I mean? Like, but I think, like, if someone like is Spanish or Italian and they start speaking English to you, you're not going to correct them. You know, like, unless they're struggling or ask you for help. But you know, if someone says something in the wrong tense and you understand them, like, most sound people, now again, there are pedantic people out there who are just arseholes. But, like, as in, it's the same with Irish, where it's like, unless I ask, sometimes I'll be like, oh, cad éan focail ar sin Irish, or, you know, I'll be like, oh, rinne, yarna, and, you know, they'll help you, like, if you're looking for it. But I think people just need to lose any kind of like, there's a bit in it where people come with the excuses. Just if you really have an interest in it and a love for it, just den it, like murder to, like, just try little bit by little bit, whatever that is. I did Duolingo last year. I finished that, and like, I was delighted with myself. Like, she's not going to be able to do that. And now I'm doing like Gaeilge Gan Straw is another, like, that's the famous like grammar book. So I'm like, that's my next thing now, because my grammar is terrible. I used to be so paranoid about the grammar, but now I'm just like, again, like, I'm just not letting that hold me back.
Yeah, the Gramaducht sin é an rud is massive dom féin freisin. Gá bhliain ó hin bhí méid déanamh drámaíocht le bhunscoil trí Gaeilge agus bhí arm scríomh drama beag. Agus, like, bhí mé trína chéile. But faoin Gramaducht, like, it was the grammar. And I was going to the pre-vid a going, an féidir leat é sin a léamh agus just é ceartú dom mar Tom Aglach gúil sé mí ceart. Like, and, you know, sure enough, she was she came back with, like, an pear dara.
I know, tá sé jacker, like, bíon daoine, like, timpeall a bhfuil a géirí cowhort doing, you know, that kind of way. Má current to an Eric de stock. Like, má tá tú, like, genuine led the ashter, like, your journey, like, tá daoine a géirí cowhort like, because like, I saw Gramaducht, like, Jacker ignach changa. Like, there's níl aon changa awan, like, well, oh, tá sé éasca péasca, like, tá mé sé, like, I'm doing German now and Duolingo, and I did a bit in school, but it's like, sometimes it's like, oh, and then when you put it into this tense, it just says this. You're just like, why? It's like, just this. Like, just not how, like, you know, because you have your, like, regular verbs and just, like, irregular. And, like, I'm like, there's more irregular. Like, this is not fair. Like, well, just why? Why is that? And it's like, even in English, you know, you're just like, I can imagine someone whose, like, first language was English, and you had to explain, like, the word right. It's like, right, like, correct, or right, like, okay, now, right, it's like, it must be, like, a head melt. Like,
and the funny thing is, because I don't know if you had this experience, but when I was doing my R test, and because I went to Nínra, Gaelscoil, Gaelcláiste, Gaeilge an Slígléir, agus bhí muid ag studéir den R test, agus don céad or bhí an fólam Tishel Geneduk Mo Canela. But, like, we didn't know that's what those were called, because we're, you know,
touch my goose studies.
We went to goose study in Tower Fod, agus Dana gan Smuinov. Shin Virne a Folum and go, oh wait, what cod? Wait, what? You know,
or to just muhi into it. I'm like, it's a gum goil she shot and slay when I raw Agnium came back.
Yeah,
so
exactly. You're like,
you know,
it sounds right. This is just the way. Totally.
And even like in German, because you have like dirty das, like every like noun has like like it's masculine or feminine or neutral, like, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. She's not gonna way like these things where you're just like, that must be like feminine or that must be, and there's not, like, she's not gonna way. It's like spinne, a spider is feminine, but then this other bug, like a kefir, which is like whatever, a beetle is male. I'm just like, okay, like why? But like sometimes, like after you're doing it a while, sometimes I'm like, just feels right, and then when I do get it right, I'm like, yes, just like I'm winning the game show.
And you know, it's so funny. I find it really interesting because one of the few parts of the Irish Leaving Cert curriculum that I don't know if it's still there, but I was so glad it was there, and really I loved it, was Starna Gaeilge. And that to me was endlessly fascinating because it was to do with where, you know, the Changa came from, like, and suddenly you're discovering all of these like connections with other languages, and then Hiberno English blew my mind. Because you know, the way that I speak English, as it turns out, is a very particular type of English that I never thought about. That all goes back to the direct translations of the Irish phrasing and the way that so for me, I just think it's hilarious that so many people are like, no, not Irish, no, like I can't speak it, but actually the way they're speaking English
is directly from it.
From it.
Like I do be like, that's
I do
be going mad, or she does be always doing that, or like
or I'm after,
but you know, like Tommy Trash, like there's loads and stuff like that.
Smithereenie, I think, is Smithereens is my favourite
love
one
it.
because you assume that Smithereenie comes from Smithereens, but it's the other way around.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I'm like, gas.
And there's so many things like that, like where you think like, oh, that sounds like Burlicus, which is like a really like janky way of writing
Makey uppy Irish, just throw a fat
it
on
never
it.
really is. Like a lot of those words are no, they actually both come from like whatever
The
like
Latin
the
or
Latin or
the-
you know
yeah.
that kind of way, or the Celtic language that was you know around whatever a bunch of years ago. But I read one of the things when I was writing this was I read Manchán McGann's book 32 Words for a Field. I don't know if you read that. I've bought so many copies for people as well. I'm sure I've funded his funded him now for the next few years.
Support the arts.
But yeah, oh Jesus, sick of supporting him. But like that was just like everything was feeling, because I used to love Starna Gaeilge as well.
Yeah.
But I remember it was like 5% or 10% yours. That was really small bit, and I was like, that's
Yeah.
the bit that I love. Like,
Yeah.
and you learned all about the mythologies and everything, and it was such a small part of the entire thing. It was just so annoying that. Like the bit that everyone was really interested in, like about Bangladesh, and you learned all about that. And then reading Mancán's book, and that was all about like what I had been writing about like unlocking the words and where words come from. And he talked about the connections between like some languages in like India and like other Asian countries. Like there was a direct link between Ireland and like before a certain bit of ice melted, and there was a direct like boats going, and like words like Krishna, the word Krish in Irish is cross, and Krishna, and they come from the same language like at one stage, like, and I'm just like, that's mad, like, but yeah, it's really interesting. And then like, so then like, yeah, as an artist or a theatre maker or a writer or whatever, like, I feel like I'm nearly overwhelmed. Oh my God, there's so much we can do, or we should be doing, or you know, that kind of way, like, and like I was saying to you earlier before we recorded, where like, because people were like, oh my God, I just really connected with that, and you know, felt really universal. And I was just like, it's literally about a girl in inner city Dublin who like, but like, as in like, I think the themes that like how I was feeling and saying it out loud, and saying it like not in like perfect Irish, and you know, grammatically now, yeah, I also got someone to like check, like my friend Kieran is that's what he does, like he just translates stuff like officially, so I just paid him to look it over. But like he like but like, as in, I was like, I don't want to use any word, like I don't want to look up any words, I don't want to use any word that I wouldn't actually use, like, because you know, sometimes you're looking up a word where you're just like, oh God, that does not ring a bell, am I even use it correctly? Because obviously it's not a direct translation all the time. It'll be like three words to say this one word, and you're gone. So I was like, I want all of the Irish to be my Irish, you know, kind of way. And I think that's why it was, because I wasn't intellectualizing anything. I was speaking a very like very basic Irish, but I think with like any spoken word, like for me, the spoken word that connects, like you can be as flowery and as like, you know, intellectual with your poem, but if it doesn't hit, it doesn't hit. And some of the poetry that really is hard hitting for me isn't like, you know, someone with a English degree from Trinity, you know, that kind of way, or has a master's in the poetry of blah blah blah. It's like, you know, like Mango, the rapper who's in Mango Matt's Man, like doing bread and butter performance, you know, that kind of way. It's like these people who are just like speaking in, first of all, their accents, like to hear your own accent, and then to hear, that's what some people said, oh my God, I've never heard Irish spoken in that accent before. And I was like, that's all I have, like, you know, kind of way. I could try and make it sound more this, but it's just not me. And I've worked hard enough in my life, especially as an actor, to not like neutralise my accent for work. So I'm not going to start in Irish either. And I'm sure there are lots of people who are like, oh, she's bastardising that now or whatever. But, you know, as much as people might hate it, most of the Irish being spoken in the country is in like Ballymun, you know, like,
well, yeah, I mean, again, it's more
Irish
that in the art
here,
test,
you know,
Canúnt, like, and there are different Canúns, and that goes back since forever.
Yeah,
we all spoke Irish in our own accent,
and the only way it's gonna like stay alive is if people are speaking. If people feel like they have to, you know, roll their R's, and it is beautiful, and I am working on that as well. I'd love for that to come to me naturalistic. But say if I miss a shave or something, like, you know, if I say I Ballymun instead of in Ballymun, like, it's just, you know, like, I don't pronounce my THs. You know, I say tings and I say them, you know, that kind of way. And there are pedants again who will be like, it's them and they and those and things. And I'm like, I know it is, but my accent isn't that. That kind of way.
I think, it's funny when those conversations happen, because there was a huge furore, I don't know if you copped it or saw it with the coverage on BBC of the Tokyo Olympics, where one particular sports presenter had a regional accent, can't even remember who it was or what it was, and then some person came out and said that it was disgraceful because she wasn't pronouncing, I think she was saying something instead of, and anyway, but my point is, like, once you understand what the person is saying and the meaning is clear, does that stuff really matter? And especially, as you say, you wanted to use your artistic voice.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you need to be true. Like, why would you pretend to be from the wilds of Connemara when you're from East Wall?
Yeah, but that's the thing. And I think, like, the language is, like, when people think of Irish, they do think of Connemara. And, like, that is a beautiful, you know, on Connaught and Igiri, you know, in Olive, in Noonagal, like, they're beautiful. But, like, they speak Irish in Belfast and in Limerick and in Derry and in all these other places that have really strong accents everywhere they speak it. So, you know, and I know it's important, you know, and when we're doing, like, our what do you call it?
Bales for Cluj Tishkent, yeah.
You know, and you have to, like, you to try and learn all the connots and stuff like that.
Ola, oh, good Lord.
Yeah, but then I think that's another thing that you build up so much in your head, and then you just meet people from Ulla and you're like, oh, I think I just, like, the whole, like, mythology behind the dreaded Gaeilge Ulla, and it's, first of all, in Muhurim, the most beautiful, like, Connaught, like, it's gorgeous. And like, I was up in Belfast recently doing an Irish language piece again, and it was gorgeous just here, and they've done an amazing thing in Belfast where they've created like Gaeilge quarter, and there's, like, on Cultural, there's, like, an arts centre there, like, it would be like maybe Axis or you know, Project Art Centre or something, and you go and sit in the cafe, everyone speaks Irish, there's, like, a bookshop, they have theatre, there's Aisling Gare works from there, and just within there, like, there's lots of places that have, you know, and I'd love to start creating little Mion, you know, Mion Gaeltachts, you know, around Dublin. Like, I know, like, Ballymun, there's a big Irish language community here, and there's, like, a few Gael schools in it, and it'd be cool if you could just create a little, or just have a little community though. Like, if you had, like, a few businesses that had, you know, people who speak Irish or are willing to speak Irish to you, you know, that kind of way. You might not be Líofa, you might be fluent, but you'd be like, I'd happily try and have a conversation with someone if they wanted to, you know. So I think it's just, like, making small little changes, like, within your own, like, someone's even saying, and I've kind of fallen off the wagon a little bit, but, like, just even saying, like, when you're getting your change off, someone, oh, girl, Muggets. And you'd be so surprised the amount of people. Like, me and my friend went into, what's the name of that place, the vegetarian place on Wicklow Street. Oh my God, it's going to drive me mad. Something, I can't remember. It's like a vegetarian place, it's really nice. Oh my gosh, it's been there for, like, years. And me and my friend were speaking Irish there. And then we went up, your one was like, oh, shouldn't I hear roll at a hole? And I was like, oh my God, like, it was just really exciting. And I was just like, so then we were kind of talking to her, and she's like, oh, I don't really have much. And I was like, no, perfect, I just shouldn't, you know, eat it.
Fair play.
Girl, Mahagad, slán, you know, and everyone's kind of looking, and, like, it's just, like, a really nice exchange. Like, it's such a small thing, but it brings a joy to my heart that I can't express. Like, you know, it's it's really
Higgum, Kinta Higgum, Bram Mohim on Shlee Kana, kind of near raw. Do you think, like, you kind of touched on it earlier, and I'm just going to bring us back to it now, is the fact that for Ireland and our culture and our Clonnaw Siúnta, it's very founding when it happened, which is, it has been intrinsically linked with Ireland and gaining freedom and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, you know, 100 years ago. All of that was one big ball that happened, you know, at the beginning of the 19th century. And in the Abbey Theatre, say, for example, there was always a show as Gaeilge, Riv an Príomh show, on Príomh Státe, it had happened. And do you feel now that, you know, especially with you making your work and kind of being inspired to kind of shine a light and bring it into contemporary sort of theatrical life, would you like to see that sort of thing happening again? Do you think there's kind of a space being created by those of us who are like, no, Tom Conan Gaeilge, you side now. Ish Lumanish, Shoma Yanga. You know.
I think there's definitely, like, a I think, like, like that thing, like when the Abbey was starting, and it was so wrapped up with Irish identity, and you know, Ireland didn't have, it wasn't officially a country, like it was part of the, you know, the British Empire or whatever, and so like language and theatre and Irish culture and all was all wrapped up in that, so they kind of all one went with the other, and maybe we've lost that a little bit, and I think that's why in Belfast, like, you know, in West Belfast, when they have the culture in there and they have a little Gaeltacht, it's because like they were trying to make it illegal, like they had to come up with the Irish Act, and you know, like when I was a kid in Belfast, it was illegal to teach Irish in schools, and like they're shutting down schools saying it was child abuse to have kids speaking Irish or just only Irish, you know, that kind of way. So it's like it's so wrapped up in them with their freedom, and you know, that kind of way, and it's made them like the language at the forefront of like, and I think there's probably like in terms of like, I think another thing with the language is because sometimes it is linked with politics. It can be for some people that's you know, an instigator for them to really want to speak it, and then for other people it's just like, oh God, I just don't want to get involved in that or think about that, or you know, that kind of way. Especially people who live through like the Troubles, and you know, my mom's generation and my nanny's generation, there was always kind of stuff, and for them that might just be like, that's all that thing. So I think it's important to that our identity is our language is included in that in national identity, but also that it's separate from that. Like it predates all of that. Like it was just a communication, like it was a way for people to speak.
Yeah.
And like again, like our storytelling, our Bailish, which is like how we tell stories, like passed down through word. It's like, as you said, like intrinsically linked to that thing. So the language is so many things. I think there's just so much pressure. There's so much, you know, so much weight on it. Like, and I think that's the thing with the Abbey, and you know, there should be. It's our national theatre, and there's 2 official languages in this country, so there should be, you know, 2 official languages on the stage. But I think it becomes so much pressure. You know, and if a show doesn't work at the Abbey and it's an English show, like it's like, right, we'll on to the next thing, whatever. But I feel like if an Irish language show doesn't work, it's like Irish doesn't work. You know, that kind of way. It's like it's hard, and also the balance, because you want anyone to, like with theatre, you want anyone to be able to go and see it. You know, because it's not just Irish people living here. You know, American tourists come over, and there's people, you know, who are Polish, who didn't grow up in our school education, and they should be as entitled to go to a show at the Abbey and enjoy it. So it's like the balance. How do you have surtitles? Do you have like, is there movement? Like, because if you go to a dance show, there's no language. Like,
Exactly.
kind of way. Dance is the language, and you know what's happening. You know, that kind of way most of the time. And you go to a and sometimes you don't. You're like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm loving this. You know, that kind of way. So I think Irish can be an art form as opposed to a language, but how do you do that? I mean, I do not have the answer. But I know they were working with like the show that was meant to be on last year with Zoe Newirden and Sean Dunn. They were working on, I think that was a movement piece through Irish as well, and I think a bit of it was on in the Dear Ireland. I know Zoe did something in that. I don't know if it's connected to that, and it was unreal, the piece that she did. But yeah, it was, and that was really exciting because it was contemporary theatre, it was Irish language, it was music and movement, and I don't know where that is now. Like they might have just scrapped it and they're doing something else. But I think people were buzzing for that. And I also think, sorry, I have to talk for ages, but
no, it's what we're here for.
Yeah, I know. But I think also just in the last couple of years, the resurgence in Irish, it's not just, like, because I was just thinking it was just me, you might have just been thinking, I want, but there's something in the atmosphere, I think.
Yeah.
That I think, like, there's like bands like Kneecap, like, I went to see them a couple of years ago, and I brought my 2 little sisters, and like 1,000 people at the Academy screaming in Irish, like, along to things, and I was just like, that is, I never thought I'd see that. Like, when I was a teenager, there was nothing cool about Irish. They're not like rapping about the language, or not talking about, it's just like their normal everyday stuff they're talking about, like stuff that rappers talk about.
Yeah, but just ask well.
Yeah, and it's funny, but then it's really hard hitting at times, and it's like very tongue in cheek, but it's like, you know, they have a point with that stuff. And I think there's just so many young people now who are just like, I don't know what it is, but like it's made it really exciting for me again, and like I get really excited when I see people reconnecting to like their language, their, you know, culture, their identity. And I think maybe like Celtic Tiger era Ireland wasn't the best for that. Ireland became a very middle class thing, and I think people went away from their roots, and from like diddly eye to die was like the bad thing, and people started monetizing it with like carols and paddy wagon and all that kind of stuff, like they making money off it, and at the same time like being like, that's for, you know,
looking down their nose
a
at
little
it.
bit, like,
yeah.
and even like Irish, like a lot of people think of Irish speaking in Dublin, like it's a very middle class a lot of the time, and it's like, you know, it's to do with status as opposed to, you know, being about heritage. And but yeah, I do think there's a resurgence in that, just even in like, and like bands like Lankum and stuff like that, and loads of people now are like getting back playing the fiddle and, you know, the music box and concertinas and all this kind of old kind of instruments that we would associate with like, oh, granddads, you know, and seeing people just like, and they probably always were doing that, it just wasn't, you know, the flavour at the time, you know, that kind of way. And I feel like, yeah, going through like 2 and now maybe 3 recessions in like this many years, people are just like, we just lost everything, let's like, to get really big, capitalism isn't working, we need to reconnect it, like it doesn't make you happy, and we weren't happier during the Celtic Tiger, and I think people are just reconnecting to, like, with regards to their art, with regards to their lifestyle, with regards to music, everything. People are reconnecting with themselves and their land. Like,
absolutely, I think you're right. I think there's a real zeitgeist kind of happening. I can feel it bring, because I'm seeing it too. Yeah. And like, I remember talking about like Celtic Tiger era, like, and I went to Gaelcláiste, and in my hometown at Gaherloch down in Carlow, everybody thought we were the poshest people, and it was like, no, but just purely because we went to Gaelcláiste, they just assumed that we were all like upper class rich folk. Like, we're totally not, like, there was all sorts. But I remember there being a brief moment where Hector O'Huckagon was cool. And Irish became cool for like 5 minutes. At one stage, and it was good. But then again, it just vanished. It vanished in this need to be for Ireland to be international. You know, and that was the thing. And you couldn't be an international kind of community if you were so bogged down in this old diddly Irish. But I would be hopeful that as we're coming into this zeitgeist, and as more and more people like Kneecap and others that you've mentioned, and yourself, are making work as Gaeilge and kind of in this new way, it's evolving naturally, that is like coinciding with this new Ireland that we're seeing, this new multicultural Ireland, and it would be so lovely to see all of that kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think like art is another thing that, like, you know, was so monetized during the Celtic Tiger, and we got so comfortable with, like, and like I think like the language, I mean, language is art, or art is language, but like, as in, like, I think about them the kind of same way, like, whereas like, because like people say like, art is that language, why are you speaking it? And then somebody like, why are you making art, there's no money in it, like, what does it mean, it's stupid, like, you know what I mean, like, you have Netflix, it's a hobby or whatever. Exactly, that's not seen as. But like Mark O'Brien was formerly of this parish of Axis, and currently part of the Abbey. He was tweeting just about like how this time now is so important in terms of where we want to go as a country. I think he meant in terms of art, and like, it just like the decisions we make now and the art that we make now will, and how we do it, like literally and physically, and, you know, how we collaborate, all this stuff is it's so important that we put these things in place so that we never kind of like get messed over like that again, you know, like, as in, like, we've been left for the wolves, you know, that it's just like, everyone is back now, we're all back working, everything's normal, and it's like, no, actually, you know, there's thousands and thousands of artists, you know, like TheatreMakers, musicians, crew, like people who work in venues. Like, I also work in Vicar Street, so just behind the bar when I'm not acting or whatever, and like that, like, that's not open, you know, and that's people's livelihoods, you know, and have just been always bottom rung, always that, and, you know, that kind of way. And I feel like before COVID, like, we were getting somewhere with like national campaign for the arts, all these like cool things were happening, and everything fell apart. And I think like it's great. Like if you go to Michael Brown's Twitter and look at the thread, like he just makes all these great points about art and the importance of art in our sector, and you know how we just need to fight for it and fight and same thing with language. I think it's like it's a thing where like we have all this power and we have all this ability to create this stuff, and you know, you need to have a value on that and a value on yourself as well, I think. So yeah, it's a really interesting time, and like I think again it's always going to be disrespected in that way, where it's like it's not the GAA, it's not going to make all that money. You know what I mean? Like it's not, you know, this or that. It's there's no financial gain, so we have to make sure people care like outside of like the finance of it, you know, that kind of way.
Definitely, it's not about, I mean, obviously we all have bills to pay and you can't get away from that, clearly. But it's about so much more than that, and it speaks to something so intrinsically deep within us that I think many people, even outside of artists and theatre and all of that, that I think a lot of people learned in this kind of past 18 months or however long, this eternity that we've been in. And, you know, I could point to things like, you know, how people fell back on music and films and books and streaming Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever. But also if you look to TikTok and what the average Joe soap, you know, found themselves creating and being makers.
I know.
I mean, I've seen some astonishing
that's
things.
The thing. On TikTok, sometimes I'm like, people are so clever. Like, they really are. Like, or just even like, did you see like the Bo Burnham show
my God.
on Netflix? And like, he did that all inside his house. Now I know he bought gear, but like, it's mad how like he just made something that's so like oppressive and so small really beautiful, and how it looked and the lighting. Like, he just learned how to do all this amazing technical shit, and like that's something that like spoke to everybody. Do you know, that kind of way? And like, you know, I think now next time he plays in Ireland, like he's played a few times, everyone's gonna want to. You know, that kind of, he's like, but just like, and then to a smaller scale, on TikTok, people are just like, sometimes I'm just like, oh my God, like people are, you know, and but then I think like the danger with that is because people are constantly creating free content, people expect stuff for free, and that's why it'd be interesting now when live stuff starts, and like, what, €25 to go see a play, and you're just like, yes, like think of all the people who were behind that to make that happen, like all the people had to pay, all the actors, all the crew, all the, you know what I mean, like, and like I know, like especially and like a lot of comedians as well are like just constantly spent, like I have a few friends who do comedy, and it's just like, when's the next video coming out? When's the next thing? And it's just like, it takes me a lot of time to do these things. You know, I know it just feels like I'm just sitting here in front of a camera, but like, you know, sometimes you're, you know, coming up with shots or editing, you have lights, you have, you know, that kind of way.
It's that kind of fast food content, isn't it? And a lot of people don't realise just how much work goes into creating, like even a 5-minute comedy sketch can be weeks or months in the making and the writing and the creating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And you've really hit an important point there about the expectation of free content, because I know that's a debate that's come up with us here many times with guests. We've discussed that thing that while it was great, and when people, you know, got various funding or whatever to create stuff for free, from a public perspective, that expectation has now grown or increased that they can consume art and work for free.
Yeah.
And you do want art to be accessible for all, obviously.
Of course, like,
But you also have to place a worth on that, a worth on people's times, their skills, the training that they've had. And I mean, that's why we're having a Festival Ideas, just to bring us on point.
Yeah.
It's why we're doing this crazy 3 days here, because we're all doing this for free.
Yeah.
You know, and we love doing it, but we can only do it for so long. You know, it's a lot of work, like any maker or artist. So it'll be very interesting to see where this, or how this evolves moving forward. So for you, Roxana, right now, I mean, we've talked about a lot of things so far, but what are you thinking about now? Like, where are you at? I won't ask, like, what are you working on? But, you know, what are the things that you're thinking about, that you're musing?
I don't know. I guess, like, it feels like a really in-betweeny period right now, because, like, you know, in a way, it was nearly easier when everything was just closed and no one was doing anything, because it was just like, right, well, these are my options, you know, that kind of way.
Yeah.
So it's at a stage now where things are starting to open back up, and there's like kind of whispers of things, but but like that exact thing where it's like before I was like, oh, throw this up online and da, da, da. But you want to be paid for your stuff, so you waiting for the call me guys. Da, da, da. But yeah, I'm finding it really difficult at the minute. I think in terms like arts wise, because I know there are some kind of things and like fringe and stuff, like there is some stuff happening, but it's hard to plan ahead. Like I feel because. Again, like everything just once the schools go back open, and you know, I'm afraid, like, will everything go back to being shut again? Will we have another like whatever? So it can be hard when you can't see the end of the thing, like in that kind of way. So yeah, I think I'm just trying to, like, I think one of the things I've kind of learned. And having not been around people is like, what I'm really excited now about is like just finding people to collaborate with. And I did kind of have plans before COVID, I think like that. But I think like after so much isolation and not being around people, I think that's my next thing is I just want to be working with like sound people on things and looking at kind of new ways to kind of create art and, you know, that kind of way and whether it's spoken word or theatre or whatever else, you know. So yeah, I'm kind of just, I feel like I'm just like gliding a little bit now. I'm like, what's happening? You know, that kind of way. But yeah, hopefully things will just become a bit clearer and a bit, just a bit easier, I think. You know, that kind of way. A bit like, yeah, like as in, yeah, clearer. Like
a bit of certainty.
A bit of focus and yeah, exactly, certainty. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, I feel really in betweeny at the minute and I feel like, as well, like coming out of COVID, people are like, oh, you must have like been making so much art. You must be like doing like, and I'm just like I actually sometimes feel a bit, being honest, I sometimes feel a bit like shell shocked. Like I can't create, like, and as well, like we create from like, we get inspired by things when you've nothing surrounding you, like to, you know, like you're not living a normal life to be inspired by, you know, that kind of way. So I go through like real kind of creative like outbursts and then nothing. And but yeah, like I've been getting like, for the first time, like since Sugar came out, I've gotten like a few like commissions for things. I had never gotten commissions for my writing. I'd usually, you know, like in a way. So I was like doing something for poetry art, like Ask Gaeilge as well. So like,
and would you be nervous about that now?
Yeah. No, I do. Like I said, I had my friend Kieran, who like I just like, because I'd want to pay someone anyway to translate it. So I'm like, I may as well pay someone that I'm friends with, that I can trust, you know, and that I now won't hurt my feelings or, you know, that kind of way. I won't be really precious about it. Because sometimes I'll be like, it's not really grammatically correct, but I feel like, you know, because we like part of a rhyming scheme, and he'd be like, I feel like you kind of get away with it. I feel like it's like, you know, whatever, like rather than being like a teacher, you know, you work on it with me, you know, it's really great. But yeah, shitting it every time, like every time. So yeah, like just like a few little bits like that. And then when I was saying, when I was up in Belfast, I worked with my friend Katie, and it was just really funny because like there was just a few things where she was just like, I don't know how you're saying that word, like it's weird. And she like, so she's from Belfast, and then obviously I'm from Dublin, and then the producer was from Louth, so she had this like other mismatch. And she was like, no, I think it's like a dialect thing. I think it's like a Connaught thing. And we're trying to figure out what was Connaught. Or sometimes I'm like, I think I've just been saying that word wrong for ages. But that was really fun as well. And again, like just collaborating, like it was just a cool project. And it was like working with like BBC Gaeilge, and they have like a really cool online, just like loads of content online. And I think with the Irish as well, and then I found it when I first started doing spoken word, is that it just opens you up a whole new avenue of like collaborators, like, and that's just my favorite thing, is just working with people, and then, you know, kind of going, oh, like we're totally vibing, let's make something. Who knows where it'll go? That's the thing. I mean, you know, theatres may never open. They're opening.
They are.
Open.
No, stop. They're definitely open. However, slowly, it's happening, and hopefully we're going to have, the way things are moving at the moment, we'll have a little bit more certainty and a little bit more consideration for the thousands of people, as you rightly say, who work in the industry. Roxana, I think we're at time. I'm actually not sure how long we've been talking. I feel like it's been about 10 minutes, but
I feel like I just...
I think we're headed towards the end. Is there anything now that you're here that you'd like to plug or make our audience aware of that's coming up?
My TikTok. No. I do have a TikTok. No, I guess like, yeah, my social media is where I promote things. Like I'm doing Alison Spittle's podcast on Monday for the Kilkenny, the Cat Laughs.
Oh, brilliant.
So like just little things like that are starting to come back, like,
Yeah.
you know. So I'm at Nicolimo on most things and at Nicolimo88 on TikTok. But yeah, so I always post all my stuff there. Like I have a film coming out at some stage. I'm not sure the date. So yeah, like just, you know, I'm just never offline. Always
like most of us these days.
Extremely
I think it's just
online
where we
girl.
live
That's
now.
me.
Yeah, great. I think your social media handles will be in the comments or something down below. Roxana, gur míle maith but me an was sin fiction house. You're a brilliant guest. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
We are welcome back anytime.
Great.
And if you're ever looking for somebody to Lara Thosquailga or collaborate with, just Gurglecker. Míle. Oh, thank you so much. Everyone for that, for watching. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I've had a blast. We're going to take a short break before we reach a very exciting portion of our Keep the Conversations Going festival, the behind the scenes tour. We're going to show you what it takes to produce 2 broadcasts, and you'll be able to meet the team, learn more about how we all became involved with the project and why they need your support to keep the conversations going. Don't go anywhere. Take this time to share this broadcast with your friends and followers if you haven't, and if you haven't already, head over to TheatreMaker.ie/donate and please pledge to save TheatreMaker. Your support is vital to the continuation of our important work. Since April 2020, we've platformed, promoted and documented the important conversations and important news happening in the Irish theatre sector and wider world. Please help us. We'll see you very soon. Hello everyone and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Roxana as much as I did. Honestly, I could have kept talking to her. We were in our own little world there. Before we move any further, I'd just like to remind everybody that everything we're doing yesterday, today and tomorrow again is all part of our Keep the Conversations Going festival. The reason that we're doing this is that we would really love your help to help us keep the conversations going. Our residency at Access has been absolutely amazing and has allowed us to grow our team, grow the show, evolve as we enter this post-pandemic-ish world. And that's been amazing, but it is coming to an end and we have to look ahead to the longevity of TheatreMaker.ie and our show Staged or Live in Irish Theatre this week. In order to do that, we really do need your help. As we've mentioned previously, we currently don't fit most funding streams. What we're doing is new, and therefore there aren't a lot of funding pots that we can apply to. We are working on that, we're making our way with that, but it's taking some time. And in the meantime, we'd really like to keep the conversation going. So we need your help to do that. So please take a moment to pledge your support at theatremakers.ie/donate. If you can't donate financially or help us out financially, please, at the very least, spread the word about us, share this stream, share our posts, share our website with your friends and colleagues to help spread the word. Enough of that. Now we are going to get into a very special portion of the show, of the festival. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take a little journey into the belly of the beast that is TheatreMaker. We're going to have a look at what it actually takes to bring this content to you, the viewer at home, and what it's taken us since we started last March in the midst of the pandemic. In a few moments, we're going to take a proper look at where it all started. We did a behind-the-scenes featurette towards the end of our sort of show series last year. And at that time, we were all working from home remotely. It was quite the nightmare at times, but brilliant. So we're going to take a look at that behind the scenes featurette. But before that, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about my own journey in TheatreMaker and how it all started with a 2 a.m. text message from our director, Kevin Michael Reid, back last March, just after lockdown hit. He basically said, did I have anything to do? And at that moment in time, given the show that I was just working on shut down midweek, I had very little to do. So I was like, all right, sure, I'll give it a go. I don't really know what you're talking about, but I'll give it a go. And so I joined the TheatreMaker.ie team and started on a journey that has led me here. Those early days were insane. I really felt like I was totally out of my depth to start with. And as a director, I did that thing where I did loads of research. I went very nerdy on it. I looked up what producers are supposed to do, looked at loads of different types of talk shows and all that kind of thing. And every guest that we had, I researched them to within an inch of their life for the pre-interviews and everything for the shows. And Kevin had to reassure me at times, no, Janice, you're doing what I need you to do, because I had never produced. I'm a theatre girl. I'd only ever done theatre. So broadcasting was totally an anathema to me. At that time, TheatreMaker for me, it was a saving grace, especially in those first few weeks. My mum had been away. She was traveling, trip of a lifetime, to like Australia and New Zealand and stuff, and she couldn't come home. She got stuck for a while, and there was a lot of worry and anxiety because she was coming from that part of the world. And I also feared for my career. The terror that I felt in those first few weeks was like nothing I've ever experienced in my life. I have spent years and so much money training and working, and it felt like all of that now was for nothing, and that I was going to be a person in my 30s whose career had just suddenly disappeared overnight. I was terrified. How was I going to pay bills? How was I going to survive? What other job options could I possibly have? So TheatreMaker, for me personally at that time, really saved me in a big way. It gave me a focus. It gave me purpose. It was very time consuming, producing like 2-hour shows as they were back then, oh God, every single week was absolutely insane. But it gave me something to do. But even more than that, even beyond that, even pandemic notwithstanding, what it actually did for me as a maker was it gave me a place, a space to connect with other makers. To talk to people. And a lot of the time, you know, they may not have realized this at the time, but there were quite a lot of people that I would have done pre-interviews with or been talking to book for the show or even interviewing for segments. And I was totally starstruck because I was getting to talk to people that I admired so much, whose careers I followed, who inspire me. And I was getting to talk to them and hear what they had to say about things. And it really provided this incredible space of connection for all of us. And oh, look, I'll always be eternally grateful for that. Now that we're here, I mean, it's stepped up again. We've got our own studio, as you can see, and it's absolutely amazing. And we are so grateful, beyond grateful to Mark O'Brien and Ray Yates and all of those people along the way who've helped us, to Dublin City Council for their support, who helped us purchase a lot of the equipment that we use for the show, and of course to Access for giving us this residency. Your support is so appreciated, and it has allowed us to create something new as we enter this kind of post-pandemic phase of what TheatreMaker is. This TheatreMaker to me means the world, and I know it does to the rest of the team, and we're actually going to go and talk to the rest of the team in a few minutes, and you can get to hear their stories and what TheatreMaker has meant for them. But before that, I think it's really important that we take a slightly cringy look at our inauspicious beginnings when we were all working from home, making it up as we were going along, working with really dodgy internet at times and bugs and all sorts. So before we get into meeting the rest of the team and hearing their stories of why TheatreMaker is important to them, let's take a look at where it all started. Roll the tape, Kev. We've still got bugs. Apologies, everybody. Here we go.
Welcome to Stage Door Live Master Control, better known as my apartment, a tiny little place in Drumcondra where I've taken every little bit of equipment that I've had to build a control room for our weekly live show, Stage Door Live. I'm Kevin Michael Reed. In normal times, I'm a theater director as well as a video and lighting designer. In COVID times, I find myself as a producer and director of Stage Door Live. Just like many of you, when we first went into lockdown, I didn't quite know what to do with myself. First, it was going to be 2 weeks, and I learned some new software. And then it was going to be 4 weeks, and I wrote a draft of a new play. And then it looked like it was going to be much longer than any of us had anticipated. I didn't quite know what to do with myself anymore. TheatreMaker.ie was a project that I've had in my head for a while, but never quite had the time to get it running. A resource for theatre makers and arts workers in Ireland to find information they need at the touch of a button. While the original project is still in development, I thought Stage Door Live was an add-on to it, but it quickly became something that we could do now. I reached out to a few collaborators to see what they were doing. Pretty much the same thing. Amy Kidd was the first person to sign on. Her and I had this incredible opportunity to work together on my GradFest production at the Lear. The more people we talked to, the more positive encouragement we received. So Stage Door Live was born. Stage Door Live is created by a group of volunteers who believed in this idea of bringing a live show each week to you during the lockdown and hopefully long into the future. Many have asked us how we create the show, so I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce you to all those working behind the scenes of Stage Door Live. This is our 10th show, and we're really proud that we've made it this far.
Tonight, I'll be talking to Niamh Honer. Tonight, I'll be talking to Aisling Byrne, Kate McCarthy, and Dr. Una Keeley, Gavin Kostick, Tom Creed. I'm Amy Kidd, and this is Stage Door Live for the 3rd of June 2020.
Our week starts on Thursday, when we have our production meeting to talk about the next week's show. First, we discuss the good and the bad of the night before. Sometimes more good than bad, sometimes more bad than good. And then the associate producer, who's taking on the show for the next week, tells us their plans for the show. Here's Chris and Abby to tell you more about the producing process.
My name's Chris. I'm a writer and a researcher with Stage Door Live, and I'm here in Wicklow, in my home. So it's my job to come up with what guests are going to appear on the show, which I do in collaboration with the other members of the team. And then I reach out to those guests by email. I do some research on them before we speak, and so I look up what their past work was, what they're working on at the moment, and then I conduct a pre-interview. And the pre-interview is to kind of give a structure to the interview on Wednesday night. So we go over what questions are likely to be asked.
Hi, I'm Abby. My job is to structure shows, find topics we want to cover, and also bring guests on. So I will pre-interview our live guests. I will also chat with Amy after those pre-interviews to share what topics we covered and to find a structure for the show that will mean we will get the most information and the most important information covered in the shortest amount of time, which is always the trick.
I tell you, one of the great curses on creativity is the ought to be feeling. I ought to be doing this. I ought to feel this way.
By Monday, Hillary, our news producer, and I have already been discussing the news segment for the week. We've been collecting press releases from theaters and companies, as well as news headlines from the major newspapers and media outlets. Here's Hillary to tell you a little bit more about her process.
Hi, I'm Hillary. I'm the news producer and writer for Stage Door Live. Every week I search the internet looking for all of the news from the theatre world, both here in Ireland and abroad. I take all of those headlines and pop them in a spreadsheet. Then I compile all of that information into a script for our wonderful host, Amy Kidd, to present at the top of each week's show.
Some good news on the home front this week is that Cork Midsummer Festival has announced their programme of events, Midsummer Moments. There are 4 ways to engage with the programme.
I also write a blog, The News That Didn't Make It, which highlights the most interesting stories and articles that we didn't have time to feature in that week's show. You can find that at TheatreMaker.ie.
Monday through Wednesday, we're basically all working a full-time job as the pieces of the puzzle come together. As the show's technical geek, I'm usually editing our pre-recordings, developing the motion graphics for the show, and working with the writers and associate producers on finalizing the show's structure. On Wednesday, the final touches are coming together. Abby and I are finalizing the script before handing it over to Amy to give it a read and make it her own. I review all the associate producers' notes from their pre-interviews with their guests and try to find the thesis of the story that we're trying to tell for that show. The last thing that I write is the last word, our weekly end-of-show monologue. Now, if you can't tell from my accent, I'm American, and the politics of Irish theatre are still something I'm very much learning. The associate producer of the show, who usually doesn't agree with me, reviews the first draft. And then we hand it over to Amy to give it her twist as well. I know there have been a few times where Amy has called me saying, "We can't say that."
As the National Campaign for the Arts points out in its 13-point plan, the arts are everywhere. We use the arts to interpret and make sense of our place in the world. And now, as we begin to recover, our world has changed and we have a lot to make sense of. How do we socially distance in the rehearsal room, or on stage, or backstage? And how do we get back to work without compromising the art that we are trying to create? Or should the art we create under these circumstances conscious and direct response to these challenges and constraints?
By about 6:30, we all log into Slack, which is our text-based communication platform. The associate producers, who are each managing chat rooms on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, as well as looking for your comments and questions. Amy gets on camera from her home. Abby, who runs the teleprompter during the show, logs into our show running system. And by that time, our guests are generally calling in and getting ready to go.
This is where my setup is when we go live for Stage Door Live. It's my sitting room at home, which isn't always ideal. Couches aren't great to sit on for comfort when you're actually trying to work, but it's what we gotta do. Already had technical difficulties this evening, and it's always a bit mad when that goes wrong, because we have to rely on this to talk to each other. One of the guests had problems logging in, so we're a bit late going up, but it's okay. And I think, yes, this is it. We're about to go live. So yeah, I gotta go. I gotta go pay attention. And here's hoping there are no more technical difficulties.
I also, during our show, run the teleprompter for Amy so that she doesn't have to hold a script in her hand while she's doing everything else. And I also manage the media questions that are coming in from all different platforms so that we can keep that conversation going between our audience, you, and our live guests and Amy. And that's what it's all about, is keeping that conversation open and keeping engaged with each other.
Thank you so much, Neve, for joining us tonight. Thank you for all of the work that you and the Civic are doing. That's all we have time for, so I'm going to say goodbye and stay safe.
Thanks. Our first art in isolation is Ricky O'Neill.
So this is the part of the show where we do our pre-records, which is the art in isolation, and it's a chance for me to breathe anyway, other than just keeping a general eye on things. I think for Kevin, who's running the whole show, it's quite difficult because he's saying goodbye to the last guest, getting ready for the next guest, and all of that, and trying to make sure that everything is where it needs to be, all in time for the pre-record to end. But for the rest of us, it's actually I usually just get to sit back and relax and just enjoy the pre-records, which is nice. While poor Kevin is frantically lining everything up along with Abby, they definitely have the harder job once show goes up, for sure.
Amy, a quick history if you're going to do that question. We're running out of time. The first episode we ran completely from the computers in my apartment. But as the show grew and as we tried to increase the quality of the production, we've been slowly moving different functions of the run of the show to cloud-based servers. Just the technical requirements of operating a remote show where everyone is spread across the country cost us about $300 a week.
So that's the end of the show. All done and dusted. Gonna sign off here now with the guys, and I've got my notes, and then yeah, we'll have a production meeting tomorrow and go through everything that went wrong and right. Didn't all go wrong, that went right. That's it.
Good night, everyone, and we hope to see you next week at 7 p.m.
For the last 10 weeks, we've been creating a show that's purpose is to celebrate the sector that we love, to talk about the issues that we face, those created by the pandemic and those that are ingrained in our daily lives as artists. To talk about the history of Irish theatre and the work that has been created and the work that is being and will be created as we move forward. I hope this gave you a little insight into our operation, an operation that we're changing every single week and trying to make a little bit better. A crazy idea that has now been watched by thousands of people between our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter channels. We appreciate your support, your encouragement, and your time. Each week you join us to listen and to have a conversation, and we hope to continue that for a long time to come. Thank you.
Wow, how far we have all come. I am shocked by some of what I've seen there. I forgot just what that was like for the last year. Now I'm going to take a moment to bring you all with me. I'm going to walk forward, and I'm going to take this mic off, and I'm going to walk into the corridor. Oh, I'm stuck. There we go. Real life, guys, it's all live. I'm going to walk into the corridor. Guys can hear me. Here we go. There we go. Just to say that now that we're behind the scenes on different cameras, there might be a slight delay between the picture and sound, so apologies everybody in advance for that. If you'd like to follow me this way, I'm going to introduce you first to Rihanna. Rihanna works with our news. Actually, Rihanna, you're going to have to come to me because I don't think the mic will stretch. Actually, if I go this way, yeah, here we go. You know it's live. So Rihanna, hey, how's it going? This is actually the first time that we've met in real life today, which is hilarious. So Rihanna, would you like to just tell us about how you came to be involved in TheatreMaker
Yeah. I started as an intern last year and kind of just stuck around, and now I'm head editor. So yeah, it's been great.
Quite the promotion there. What was it about this gig that made you want to stick around? Because I know it can't be that it's all sunshine and roses.
Yeah, well, I just love the arts, so basically just writing about that or just being involved in this is something that I really enjoy.
Oh, fantastic. Would you like to have a future kind of in that area of arts and journalism?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Fantastic, and we get to be a part of that journey. That's amazing. Thanks, Rihanna. Blue, who is literally, as we speak, working on the news for this evening's show. Hey, Blue, would you like to come? Do you want to show what you're at there? Yeah, literally writing the script.
Peek of the script. We've got a sneak peek of some headlines.
Ooh, exciting. I don't know how any of that works. I live in perpetual fear of doing something wrong when it comes to the news department. Blue, would you like to take a step this way so that I can give you the microphone and ask you, how did you come to be involved in TheatreMaker?
Well, Janice, I came to be involved in TheatreMaker because, well, a long time ago, a bunch of us worked in theatre, and then there was no more theatre, and we were like, what can we make that is about theatre but not theatre? And so Mr. Kevin Michael Reid asked me to join in. Hilary, all of us are from the Lear, by the way. Big shout out to the Lear there. Hilary was also working on the time, so I was kind of sort of in a position like Rihanna's, but Rihanna does a much better job of it. And I should say I'm actually the news producer now, so I don't really do a lot of the writing or much of it. I just make sure that it happens. So I'm mostly formatting files and just moving them from place to place.
But you do it so well.
Oh, stop it.
And of course, recently, now that we're in our new home and we have our new dedicated news show, Irish Theatre This Week, you now have dipped your toe into the presenting pool. How's that been for you?
Well, it's true, yes. I'm a substitute, like third rank news presenter. I think I'm the fourth, technically, of the show. And it's going to be, very soon you're going to meet Mihal, who is today's news producer. And very sadly, today is his last day. I should also mention it's also my first day meeting Rihanna in real life, which I hadn't actually realised till she came in. And then we got to do the thing of being like, who's taller? Because that's obviously how you're always like, you have legs. You actually exist in the real world. This is very exciting. So when you see the news and you see the people that look like they have memorized the entire thing, you can know that they're reading off a prompter that Abby runs, that we have all written, and those beautiful headlines and stuff that come up, they were on the sheet that you just looked at. There's images to be collected, there's video, we take a lot of our own images, we have an image library, we've taken days out to go take photos of the Abbey, Project Arts Centre, Stephen's Green, all of these wonderful places. We've gone out and we've taken our own video of Project Arts Centre, we've taken our own video of the Gaiety, we go and we request it. Abby was in the Abbey on Monday getting a film of Pegeen, the new cafe, so it's not just even 2 days a week in here. It's, we're thinking about it a lot of the time. All day, every day, writing over the weekends, getting the script ready, collecting images. Yeah. It's a lot of stuff.
Somebody on social media has just said, I'm hearing in my ear, that Blue does, what was it, Kevin? An amazing job. So you're obviously doing it very well, Blue.
Oh, stop. Flattery will get you everything.
It's your mom, isn't it?
That's how, I bet it's my mom, yeah. That's how I get roped into everything, is flattery. Now you all know the secret.
So, Blue, just before we move on very quickly, what does TheatreMaker mean to you? Like, well, why are you doing this?
I think it's a really cool and unique show, and I actually, do you know what? I really wanted to become like the Late Late Show of theatre. I want people to be like, I'm heckin' hyped. Didn't want to drop an F-bomb there. Heckin' hyped to sit down and watch, theatre makers like go at each other's throats. Just kidding. To talk about new shows and stuff. And I just think, to be honest, I think Kevin has put so much work in it, and I think he and Abby and Janice and Rihanna and everyone have been doing such a great job and put so much work into it. I think it's kind of amazing what everyone has done with very little, really. And I just imagine
Nothing, Blue. We've had nothing.
I didn't want to say nothing. I didn't want to say nothing. Is this the part where I say none of us are paid?
Yeah. No, to be fair, no, we haven't. Now we don't have nothing. When we started, we had absolutely nothing. Now we've gone from having nothing to a little.
I think people have seen the images where we're all just like, I'm sat on my bed at home in Galway where I was trapped for 5 months. So I think people have also just like seen those images. But yeah, so it's lovely to be in Axis, and it's lovely to actually see my colleagues in the flesh for sometimes the first time. Not touching, can't get mad. And I hope you enjoy this evening's show.
Fantastic. All right, I'm going to keep with the music. No, not music. News department for the moment. And I'm going to bring you guys, banging into a door, to meet Micheál, who you heard Blue talking about. So there might be a little camera switcheroo here as we come into here. So Micheál, I'm going to ask you, can we see you if we go over here? Yeah, we can. Brilliant. So Micheál, I'm really sad that today's your last day. I feel like we're just getting to know each other and you're leaving.
Tomorrow's going to be my last day as well. Like I'm in the morning tomorrow, so you'll see me on the show presenting a little bit. But today's my last SDL, so
that's so
sad,
Can you tell us about your particular journey with TheatreMaker, how you came to be involved, what you've been doing, what you generally do?
Well, I was in DCU, I still am. I'm doing this as part of my placements. So it's part of the master's program that I'm in for journalism. I'm doing this as part of the placement, and it's the final part of the course. And yeah, I just kind of stumbled into an industry that I'm like quite new to, but excited, and got to learn so much about theatre in
Okay, cool.
Hi guys,
I'll pop that down.
we're having some audio tricks.
Audio technical difficulties. This is how you know it's live. Apologies if there's a delay with the picture. We're behind the scenes now. The cameras aren't quite set up for this, so
We're using
apologies.
some new technology
Yeah.
that we don't use during the stage door live, like during
days in our bedrooms running from home.
At least we can talk to each other now. We don't have to do it all virtually.
Absolutely. So, Abby, I just asked you, you started out coming in just doing social media, and now you essentially are Kevin's right hand. You run the prompter, you run the social media, you write the shows, you book the guests. There's very little that you don't do. If you left, the show would fall apart. How has that happened? And why are you still here?
Well, first off, like, I think the camaraderie and the teamwork that we found while working from home was really important. Being able to work on a project together was vital. I think it kept me sane. I would agree, or I would hazard a guess it's the very same for everyone else. So yeah, Blue is nodding the camera. Yeah. So it started out with that, and then, like, you know, I've always felt like I was sort of on the outside of conversations, and I think being able to start and engage in conversations that I wouldn't have regularly. Like, one of the first weeks we put a show together, I was chatting with Julie Kelleher from then The Everyman and now Mermaid Arts, and I realized, oh, these conversations that I would never have had an opportunity for are happening and facilitated by this project, which is just phenomenal and lovely. So yeah.
Do you want to tell the guys, because we are all so aware of just how much blood, sweat and tears of yours go into this thing. Do you want to fill our audience in a little bit? They will have gotten some sense from the earlier behind the scenes footage, but it's grown since then.
It definitely has, because we've, like, you know, obviously the team has shifted. Oh yeah, so many screens. The team has shifted and we've taken on different responsibilities. So right now I am associate producer on Stage Door Live. I'm running the prompter. I'm running social media. I am
booking the guests.
What else am I doing?
Helping with research and script writing.
Often getting coffee.
Abby writes on Mondays. She writes the This Week section of the upcoming theatre.
I try not to think about it all at once. One by one, it tends to work. But yeah, I will say, like, you know, I was running it off of this and like a tablet, and now having a couple of screens is nice. It also makes my brain explode a little bit. But yeah, it's been, you know, just, we all sort of fill in the gaps when we can, because that's the essence of the project.
Absolutely. And while I have you, Abby, what, like, I don't know how you're still standing, to be honest. You do so much. Coffee, all the coffee. Why are you still here? What does TheatreMaker mean to you?
I mean, it's been a year and a half of tumultuous times, unexpected changes, and really you can't plan. So I mean, realistically. So going week to week or every other week or month to month has been really a nice way to approach the time passing. It's made it absolutely fly. I mean, it's the people, it's the fact that we can promote and platform Irish artists and makers, and also keep up on the conversations going on internationally. You know, I came over to Ireland to train as an actor, and found myself on the outside, like I said, and now I feel like I'm meeting so many people, and I'm hearing those conversations and a part of cultivating a space for that. And I think that's really, it's amazing. And I'm really, really freaking proud of us for doing what we have, and for getting through the last year and a half with coming out of it with a project like this. And it's, you know, if you think about it for too long, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But like every other week we're producing 2 broadcasts. Every week we're doing a 20-minute news show. It's impressive.
It really is, and definitely overwhelming if you think about it for too long. If you stop and think about it. I'm going to come over here now, and I'm going to talk to the guy who is to blame for all of this. Kevin Michael Reid, you come over from America and you plant your flag and you somehow con us all into this madness. The audience will have seen Kev a bit of how it came to be in that earlier video, but now this much further in the future and coming to our audience from the Access Media Hub, how are you feeling? What do you want to say to the guys at home about what you do?
You have Abby's list of things.
and then you have the I do. And I'm not trying to take away from what Abby does amazing. Everybody on this team is amazing and puts in everything that they can, sometimes more than they can. But yeah, for me, creating TheatreMaker was an act of desperation because, like everyone else in the sector, my work all disappeared. I was booked through August last year, and then all of those one at a time just disappeared. And I sat around for about 3 weeks and realized that I couldn't do that. So I started calling friends, and these guys are all my friends. I think maybe still, maybe
debatable.
But they've also become family because I literally talk to them more than I talk to my family. Yeah.
Aww. Don't get me emotional. I have a whole other show to do in a few minutes. So, Kev, what's been the highlight for you in all this madness? Like, what's been the best part of it? Apart from me, obviously.
I think I agree with Abby and with you. I think it's just been the people being involved with everybody, but also just getting to connect with the sector. And that's the real reason why TheatreMaker is still around, is because we're still allowing conversations to happen. That it's funny. I was talking to. I don't want to, just in case they don't want me to. It was a private conversation. I was talking recently to someone higher up on the scale, and they said, you're taking what used to be conversations in the boardroom or conversations in the bar after a show, or the conversations that never make it out in public, and you're putting them out for everyone to participate in, and I think that's really, really important, and that's why we do this.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to touch on something Abby said earlier, which was about feeling like previously that we were out, that feeling of being outside of the conversations that were happening, all those conversations you were just talking about that happen in shows, and especially when you're, starting out or maybe even middle of the road, but you're not one of the people, you can really feel like you're outside of those conversations. And I think we've worked really hard in all our shows to try and have such a mix of guests that we're inviting everybody into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the most important thing that we can do. I remember early in the lockdown, we had no clue what was happening. And thank God we had organizations like NCFA that. Sorry, I'm controlling the show as well as talking to.
This is the essence of what you
this
do.
Is it. Yeah, this is real life, guys.
But yeah, thank God we have organizations like NCFA who keep us updated. But we felt that we needed more. We needed more information more regularly, and that's what our audiences have said as well. I think you've heard the stats, but we've had over 120,000 views on Facebook and YouTube, and then Twitter as well. So it's just crazy the number of people that have watched our shows.
Yeah, I think we early on in what we were doing, or kind of middle of the road, Kevin, I don't know if you remember this, but we had another conversation with the person who I won't name just in case, but who said that what we were doing was essentially a new evolved version of what was the Irish Theatre magazine.
I heard that as well from
somebody.
As we try to search for the right funding streams, we've been talking to a lot of people, and a lot of people have mentioned that. Even some of the original founders of the Irish Theatre magazine have said the same thing. So yeah, I mean, it's cool to fill that void that definitely has existed.
Shall we go? I see there's a pile of questions there. Shall we go and take some questions, Kevin?
Yeah, you're going to have to do it from here because our audio in the studio has disconnected.
Okay, cool. That's fine. So we'll do it from here. I can read them from here. I'm going to be here. Great. So, Joseph, what has your biggest learning been your biggest learning from starting TheatreMaker? What was your biggest challenge? Oh, wow. Well, for me, the biggest learning has been... Actually, it's been learning that I and my skills and what I do for a living is of worth. Actually, that's been the biggest thing that I've learned, that I can take space, that I have a right to that space. Which, I mean, it's not something I even particularly realised I had to learn, but in light of the last year, I did need to learn that, and I have learned that. My biggest challenge, I don't know what my biggest challenge actually, there's been so many. Internet? Kevin, what do you think?
I think the biggest challenge has been internet. Thankfully, we have access to internet right now, but you know, when we were all working from everywhere in the country, sometimes Blue in Galway, Janice in Carlow,
Yeah.
Chris in Wicklow,
And Spain.
me and Spain,
Chris,
me in
yeah.
Dublin, Abby in Dublin as well. Me, Hall, you weren't around back then, but and then all of our guests coming from all over the country.
Oh,
as well.
like the wilds of Kerry or Connemara or Donegal. I mean, even Kilkenny. At one point, we had a disastrous show where we were connecting somebody in Kilkenny.
Yeah, but you know, we've been slowly investing our own money in new technology to make that a little better. And we still have our problems. Sometimes we can only connect to someone over the internet, but there are other options that we're using at this point as well.
Yeah.
I mean, even right now,
yeah,
you know, we're using an iPhone to connect, so it's quite pixelated, I can see. Here's another question, and this is from our good friend Rodolfo.
Oh, fantastic. How do you think shows like this helped keeping theatre alive for other theatre makers? How many hours does a single program take from the team? And Rodolfo for Readings for Brew. Hi in Peru. Oh, wow. Well, I have no idea how many hours. I mean, lots.
Initially?
Yeah.
I mean, I know we were working probably, 65?
Yeah, I think early on we've kind of found a process, you know. So, you know, each show is put together in a day at this point, with the exception of the producing, which Abby does 90% of. That takes, I would say, it probably takes 4 full days to produce each episode of Stage Door Live. It takes about 1.5 days of the entire news team to do an episode of Irish Theatre This Week. So you are looking at, you know, 20, 30 hours a week right now. But last year we were all working 40-hour weeks.
Easily.
At least.
Yeah.
So.
Easily. How do you think shows like this help? I mean, we've touched on how it's kept theatre alive for other makers a little bit, I think, and that's the connections and the conversations. I know that was a big thing for me, was like, oh, I'm not alone in this mad world. Yeah, I think, I don't know, do you have anything?
No, I think, yeah, really it's just about staying connected, but also, you know, again, I go back to the backroom conversations, you know, taking those conversations and putting them out for everyone to hear and everyone to be involved in, I think is really, really, really important.
Yeah.
Again, it comes from, I'm American, we like to argue about everything political. But yeah, and I think tomorrow we have our first senator on our program. We did have a poem by
Oh, who did we have? Oh, was it David Norris?
Yes.
Yeah, David Norris.
Senator Norris. But we have our first senator and our first TV on to talk about some of the politics. So that's really cool. That's really exciting that you know, people are actually reaching out to us because they want to use us. Because it is an important resource for the sector.
Yeah, hugely. And I think to add to that we've managed to have conversations a lot of the time about topics which previously would have been very taboo, or they would be things that everybody would be talking about but not very openly. Things like overwork, pay scales, representation, all of those things that can quite often be feel quite taboo, and we've managed to bring them out in the open, and I think that's really important.
I think this time especially has helped people open up about those issues.
Yeah.
Because we can't stop ignoring them, and it's given us time to refocus on our priorities.
Yeah, absolutely. We've another question there. Have you thought about creating educational content for school drama programs? I would love to have a chat about that. For those of you who don't know, I spent a lot of my time as a facilitator, particularly working with young people in schools and that kind of thing. I am all about that kind of stuff. So let's have a chat about that. I think that would be great.
Janice, would you like to tell us what you did before the pandemic?
Which bit?
All of them. Just to give people an idea of the range we have in our team.
Yeah, so I suppose my primary job is, my main thing is I'm a theatre director, or trying to be. Moved back to Ireland from London there in 2016 and decided this is where I want to be. So I work with Equinox Theatre Company. I'm an associate artist with them actually, and currently I'm directing with them on their latest project, the Power Project, which Kevin also worked on, where we were working with 3 other countries to make one theatre piece that was touring Europe. So we were in Prague, in January 2020, and then we were due to be in Italy and Greece, and then in Ireland as well. Obviously that didn't happen. And like everybody else, we had to resort that project, and we've made it into a film, which is out in a little bit. So that's one thing that I do. I also teach acting on the acting course down in KCAT. I teach acting facilitate drama workshops and teach acting in secondary schools. I do secondary school shows, musicals, that kind of thing. And I have my own theatre company, Slapdash, in Carlow. That's a community-based theatre company. So very, very, lots of inclusive practice, that kind of thing. And then obviously there's all the other stuff like the odd jobs doing stage management or whatever else. Like everybody, like producing, that kind of thing, where, the money jobs as well. So yeah, that's what I do.
What do you do when you're not making TheatreMaker, Kevin?
Well, they saw me in the video, but I work as a director, as well as a lighting and video designer, and I do a lot of live streaming at this point for theater companies and other organizations.
What do you do, Blue?
What do you do, Blue?
Yeah. What do I do? I wonder if how am I gonna.
There you
Hello. I have this problem where I keep telling people I was a lighting designer, and I am actually slowly creeping into being a lighting designer again. I mentioned briefly earlier that Kevin and I met in the Lear in Dublin, and we actually did a project together. And I sometimes stage manage. I am moving into production management, I suppose. I run a lot of events. I run a lot of juggling conventions in my spare time. And before I was in theatre, I was a circus performer. One little tidbit there. I was a professional stool walker, actually. I know, yeah.
No wonder you're obsessed with how tall people are.
Wait, yeah, of course. I've been really enjoying over the pandemic meeting people for the first time in real life and finding out that they have legs, generally speaking. Yeah. I think that's kind of everything I do. Yeah. Abby, you mentioned being an actor.
I am an actor. Yep. Sorry, I'm trying to do some social media.
Oh, I'm so sorry. We're interrupting.
No. This is the joy of it. Yeah, so I'm an actor. I came to Ireland to study acting. And yeah, have been happy to dip my feet into the producing role. And also, like, this is the thing. We connect with so many makers and so many people all over. My networking and contact, cold calling skills, perfecting them, or maybe other people would disagree. But yeah, so acting, talking. I'm gonna stop talking now.
Yeah, so just copped the time, and we have a whole other show to do at 7, and it's like 6:10. So listen, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this behind the scenes tour live, full of all of the madness.
Oh, yeah,
I hope you really enjoyed getting a sneak peek at what it is that we do and how it all happens. We are going live, hopefully, with Stage Door Live at 7. Please do come back to us then, have a quick break, go get a cup of tea, drink of water, whatever you need to do. Come back for 7. We'll be there for Stage Door Live, and there will be a whole new stream. Thank you, Kevin. So visit our pages, go to our YouTube channel, go to our Facebook. There'll be a new evening stream starting at 7 p.m. And I will see, we've got an amazing guest list. So please do check it out. We've got Gina Moxley. I'm so excited to talk to her. She's coming into the studio. So please come back at 7 for the evening live stream. And also please share, spread the word. TheatreMaker.ie /donate if you can. Thank you so much, guys. See you later. Bye.